everyone too, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All righty.
I got a sign, and I'm always
Hello.
gonna hit myself with it.
About that. We're gonna have a public hearing. Good evening and welcome to tonight's public hearing on December 1st, 2025. This hearing has been called by the select board to provide information and allow public comment regarding the 2025 revised general assistance ordinance. Before we begin, I'd like to cover some general housekeeping items. This hearing is to hear questions and comments on the information presented during the public hearing. Members of the public will be called upon by the select board chair, ensuring that everyone who wishes to participate has an opportunity to do so. When called upon, please step up to the podium, state your name and your town of residence. We ask that audience members be respectful and refrain from side conversations. Any individuals who are continuously disruptive may be asked to leave the hearing. Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting. The floor will be open for public comment. Are we gonna, should we do the flag first?
Let's do the flag. That's always a good idea.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it's always a good idea.
Well, we usually,
Pledge allegiance.
over here.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Great. So, is there anyone who has any comments to be made for the general assistance ordinance? It's a lot to take in.
Mhm.
I don't believe that we have had this updated or accepted an updated version of this other than the tables for quite some time. When did you say it was 2015?
Yep.
That you found? So this has been rewritten to clarify newer laws that have been into effect. And that, it's 30, 40, how many pages? 50, 70. 70 pages.
Mhm. Madam Chair, I was just wondering if anyone could help me understand the housing maximums recovery residences. What exactly?
What page is that?
That's on the third page in, I believe, the table there. And I suppose we'd fall under York County HMFA.
Yep.
And would it be correct to interpret that to mean that's the maximum amount that any household could receive in a given month, in a given week?
The maximum? It's the maximum like income. Like you have
All
to
right.
hit a threshold of like assets and income to qualify for GA.
Okay, so it's an income threshold.
Yes,
Okay.
for the most part. I mean, I don't have all of them in front of me.
Anyone? Close this down?
Oh, Madam Chair, just another quick, I'm sorry, just an observation. Looking at the expense report, we have $1,500 budgeted for general assistance. And if I'm reading correctly, I think we have just a remaining balance of about $89 right now.
Yes, we will be getting a reimbursement from the state for some of that.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Anything else? We'll close the public hearing. Then we'll go switch hats. And welcome to the Town of Lyman Select Board regular meeting, Monday, December 1st, 2025. This meeting is a public proceeding and is being recorded. And we already did the Pledge of Allegiance. And so we'll go right to item 1, which we already did the public hearing. And so B is EcoMaine Kevin Roche, Extended Producer Responsibility Law.
Sorry, I didn't put it on here, but you guys will have to like vote and approve the ordinance.
Yeah.
Either tonight or,
We can do that after
okay.
Kevin's presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kevin Roach. I serve as a general manager for EcoMaine, and I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. The town of Lyman is an owner community of EcoMaine, so it's very important that we stay connected, closely connected, and we do that mostly through Amber. So Amber, thank you for your service to EcoMaine. And
Thank you for coming.
as a volunteer, traveling to EcoMaine at least once a month. We really appreciate her efforts and her services to support the organization. The handout that I gave you has quite a few things in it, but the thing that I'm going to pay particular attention is the actual PowerPoint presentation that looks like this. I have also included our annual report, so that has a lot of our finances in it as well, and what we accomplished over the last year. Some of that information is in the PowerPoint presentation that I'll go over today. So my objective today on the first page there is I thought it would be helpful for you to make sure that you understand who EcoMaine is, what our mission statement is, what facilities and programs we offer, a little bit on our annual report, our outreach and education, EPR, which I think Amber requested was the real substance behind this discussion, and then the vision for the future. EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. It's a new law. It was passed in the Maine legislature in 2021 to be enacted in January of 2026. So the timing is very appropriate. And I'll get a little bit more into EPR in one of the follow-up slides. So on the first page there, which is page 2, who is EcoMaine? So EcoMaine is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have 69 member communities, of which the town of Lyman is one of those owner communities. We also have a couple of communities in New Hampshire. We manage the solid waste and recycling from all those communities. On page 3, you'll see what our mission statement is, and I think it's pretty simple, but it really describes us best. And that is we provide comprehensive long-term solid waste solutions in a safe, environmentally responsible, and economically sound manner. And we are a leader in raising public awareness of sustainable waste management strategies. So I think it's the tail end of that mission statement that really sets us apart, and we really focus on, because the only way we can be successful is if our communities are successful in participating in our programs. On the right-hand side of that same slide on page 3 is the waste hierarchy. This hierarchy is printed and identified in Maine state statute. It is also guidance from the Environmental Protection Agency at the federal level. And that is to first focus on reduce, reuse, and recycling, and then compost and digestion, and then waste to energy. And then the very bottom rung is a landfill. We do still need landfills today because some waste cannot be managed in one of those higher rungs of the hierarchy. The idea here is to conserve what we're putting into our landfills, and we do that by exercising those higher rungs of the hierarchy. On the next page, which is page 4, this is a little bit on our brick and mortar as to what we offer. We have 4 facilities and programs that help us manage this waste. We have the waste energy plant, which is located in the city of Portland. That's the turnpike there you can see right beside it. And that is where we combust the waste. We burn the waste. And by doing so, we're able to reduce the waste by 90% by volume. So our landfills really are 1/10 of the size that they would have been if we were just dumping raw waste into those landfills. So that's a huge benefit. And it also is I think unique in the fact that we're not reliant on faraway places to manage our waste, which is often the case with most cities in the United States and North America and really all over the world, is that they're just shipping by train, by tractor trailer, by barge, shipping their waste to faraway places basically to find that open space and dump it there. So I think our communities do a pretty good job in managing the waste that we generate ourselves here currently in such a fashion. We also do have an Asheville landfill. We mostly landfill our ash from the waste energy process. So after we burn the waste, we have ash, and that is what's landfilled. That landfill is located in the city of South Portland and in Scarborough. Another unique, I think, important variable here is that our landfill still has strong capacity for many, many years to come. And the reason for that is because of the recycling and waste energy programs that we offer. We do have a recycling facility. We are in construction of a new recycling facility that I'll get to in just a moment. And then we have a new, it's actually not a new anymore. I keep calling it a new, but we have a food waste recovery program. It's actually we started it 8 years ago. We're in partnership with Exeter Biofuels and AgriCycle Energy, whereby we collect food waste, we process the food waste, we depackage food waste and send it to Little Exeter, Maine, which is on the national map. We in Maine should be very proud that this has been a sustainable resource utilized to manage food waste right here in the state of Maine. And that program still exists today, and we hope to grow that. So on the next slide, which is on page 5, you'll see our certifications. We're ISO 14001 certified, which is proof of our environmental performance, but also ISO 45001, which is proof of our safety performance as well. And this helps us operate on a higher environmental platform and operate as safely as possible. And these two items, I think, are very important. It's kind of like a financial audit that you might be more familiar with, but the auditors come in, make sure everything's legit, that we're following our policies, all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, and then reporting out any inconsistencies to the general public and to our board members as well. So really keeps us on our toes and is really a helpful tool for me in running the organization to do just that. A little bit on our annual report there, which starts on page 6, and the whole annual report is included in your packets. But again, I mentioned our mission, but one of the things that's most notable about this annual report is our level of growth. So 20 years ago, we had 21 member communities in our organization. Today, we have 69. So we've seen really, really strong growth. And this past year, in July of 2025, we added 9 new communities. And so that has really allowed us to grow and to continue to offer our services with some level of an economy of scale that keeps rates in check for our member communities. Because what we're seeing in this industry, like many of the industries that you're a part of, is costs are escalating. And they're escalating at a very high rate, and in some cases higher than inflation, because of the services that we provide. Landfills and waste energy facilities are not cheap to run. And so those costs are escalating. And with an economy of scale, we are able to maintain what we call reasonable, marketable rates. So yes, we're seeing increases, but they're still in check with the market. And across the market place, we can offer a competitive rate to our member communities. So I just wanted to note, you all are invited to our annual meeting, which is in June. It's at Thompson's Point. And one of the things that's unique about this annual meeting is that our very own, we have a very own house band called Talking Trash, and they play at our annual meeting. So just kind of a side note, but it's our very own employees who are in that band. On the next page, which is page 8, hard to see, but those are our member communities. So we're not a county organization. We're obviously more in check with what a solid waste authority would be, but communities join by choice. They want to be a part of this organization. And so you can see we extend, as I mentioned before, into New Hampshire with 2 communities, but I'll go to Central and down East Maine, as well as all the way to the west border. But you can see where those member communities line up. Also on this page, you'll see the new communities this year. I did leave out one because they came in kind of late, and that's the town of Dayton. But in addition to that, Buxton, Kennebunkport, North Berwick, Old Orchard Beach, Sanford, Shapley, South Berwick, and Topsom. So you can see that communities do want to regionalize solid waste services. They want to be a part of an organization that works together across political boundaries to manage the waste and recyclable resources that we generate. The next page is our board of directors. Again, thanks to Amber for serving on that. But our members are selected by the towns, such as the town of Lyman. We have two other committees. We have an executive committee, and we also have an outreach and recycling committee that Amber also serves on. The next page, which is page 10, is a little bit on the market watch. So we sell a fair amount. Two of our revenue sources are selling electricity. So from burning the waste, it goes through a boiler, and the boiler generates steam. The steam is connected to a generator, which sends electricity out to the grid. We sell the power to whoever the high bidder is. Right now, it's Constellation, and we have 2 years left on the agreement with Constellation. We also have a revenue source coming from the sale of recyclable materials. And you can see the makeup of that: cardboard, paper, plastic, and aluminum and glass as well. And how it's made up versus tonnage versus revenue itself. The next page, which is page 11, people are always kind of interested. Well, what is the market? How much is this stuff worth? Cardboard is something that we sell mainly as a domestic commodity, scrap commodity. So we're keeping it, most of it, not all of it, but most of it, right here in the country, which is a good thing. Actually, Solvay Paperboard in Syracuse, New York, or just outside of Syracuse, is probably one of the largest consumers, and they make 100% recycled boxes out of recycled cardboard. So they're not using any trees at all. That's their entire feedstock is recyclable paper. So they need this paper to make their product, and without it, they won't be successful. So cardboard is kind of has been a success story. You can see the prices come down a bit since last year, but it's what I would call a pretty stable market that has pretty good demand. Mixed paper, on the other hand, is a little bit more volatile, as you can see. Doesn't nearly have the value, and that's because this grade of paper a number of years ago used to be called old newspapers, something you've probably never heard of before. But newspapers is something that obviously aren't in the market anymore. We get very little newspaper in our recycling program, just a little bit. So it's become what we call a mixed paper that doesn't have the value that newspaper has. However, we do feel that this is going to improve and increase because a lot of new materials are being made from mixed paper products. The next graph that you see on page 13 is a little bit on our metals market. So you can see the aluminum in the tan bar graph, and then the steel cans in the green. Obviously, ferrous cans aren't worth nearly the value that aluminum cans are, but they still have pretty good stable markets for selling these two materials. And then plastics. Plastics gets a pretty bad rap, but there are packages that are successfully packaged in plastic containers. Some of the advantages of using plastic is the weight of it. You can ship it, and so there's a balance there that we always have to keep in mind. I think the main reason why there's a lot of talk about plastics recycling and recovery is that not all plastics are recyclable. So like flexible packaging, or what we would call low density polyethylene, or plastic film, plastic bags, not a desirable item in the market, doesn't have hardly any value. And so that's not something that is marketable on a regular basis. But more rigid plastic containers are. So for example, on this chart, you can see that HDPE natural containers, which are your milk jugs. If you buy milk jugs in a gallon container, that white cloudy container, that has value over $2,000. That had value this past year over $2,000 a ton. So nobody's going to throw that material away with the value that brings in. If everything was packaged in that package, we'd be in pretty good shape. But not far behind it is PET containers and also colored HDPE, which is your detergent containers. On page 15, we talk a little bit about a landfill. As I mentioned, it's located in South Portland and Scarborough. You own that landfill, or you are part owner of that landfill. That right now is probably one of the biggest assets that you as a owner community have with EcoMaine. Why? Because we have airspace there. Airspace is valuable because you can fill it with a waste material that can't be recycled or can't be recovered. And so in this case, it's mostly ash. It sometimes can be, especially in the middle of the summer, when our volumes are up. We get more trash in the summer than we do in February. And so we have to account for the seasonal trends. But that airspace is very valuable to our member communities. And when we have permitted airspace that'll last at least another 20 years, and we have unpermitted airspace that'll probably last another 30 years that has not been permitted yet, but our plan is to get that permitted. So we have some longevity there, and those numbers are all contemplated on the fact that we continue the practices that are in place with a focus on recycling and reduction, but also on waste to energy and food waste recovery. So on the next page, we just talking about our multifamily recycling initiative. Multifamily dwellings only have a recovery participation rate of about 8%. So there's a huge amount of progress that can be made with multifamily. We received a grant from the federal government of $2 million, and we're really honing in on multifamily. It could be a garden-style apartment. It could be a mobile home park. It could be a high-rise with multi-units. Whatever the case is, we're trying to add them to our recovery programs so that they too can recycle. And on page 17, I think the biggest takeaway from today's discussion is the extended producer responsibility law that, again, will begin January 1st, 2026. So it's really right around the corner. So what is all this talk about EPR? Well, EPR has been around for a very long time. You probably have been participating yourself in an EPR program. The bottle bill is actually a form of extended producer responsibility, believe it or not. So that program was set up long ago, and most people actually do participate in it. And this is to extend it beyond, but with a different pathway toward that recovery. So it's not going to be the deposit program that you're probably used to. It's going to be, it's being formed in another way that is more conducive and probably cheaper or less expensive than the bottle bill program. So what this does is it's charging the producers of packaging who make the packaging and bring it into the state of Maine, and they're charging them a fee for managing those packages, for managing that waste. So that's what starts January 1st, is the fees will start being applied to the producers of this packaging, and that'll go into a fund. You're only eligible for reimbursements from that fund for your recycling programs. And that's why this is so important to you, because this is why you want to maximize your recycling opportunities so that you can maximize your reimbursements. Because if you leave material in the waste stream, you're not eligible for reimbursement. If you move material from the waste stream that is recyclable over to the recycling stream, your costs associated with collection, processing, and marketing recyclable materials are a eligible cost for reimbursement. I will note it is a partial reimbursement because it doesn't include everything. It only includes packaging. So this paper, for example, that you have in front of you is not included because it's not a package. A newspaper, if there are any out there, is not a package. A magazine, a catalog, junk mail, not a package. But the plastic, metal, and glass containers that you probably used up this holiday weekend, most of those are packages, and of course are the well-known cardboard box and cereal boxes and all those types of fiber packaging are included in the program. Excuse me. So producers pay into the fund. That money then becomes available for municipalities. Nobody is eligible for reimbursement except municipalities. So residents, aren't directly getting the reimbursement unless their town is offering a recycling program. The towns with the most effective recycling programs are the ones who are going to get the largest bang for their buck. Because every ton that they're able to switch over to recycling is an eligible reimbursable cost. The problem with a new program, like any new program, is there's going to be growing pains. I didn't make up the law. I'm just reading the law. I've read the rules. We heavily commented on those rules. But this is the way the rules play out. This is the way the program is going to work. So going forward, and on page 18, you can kind of see that there's been a trend toward EPR. Why? Because towns and municipalities can't afford waste disposal and recycling. And so we're really leaning on the producers of packaging to share in that cost. It won't be all costs, but it'll now be a shared cost going forward. So you can see the states that have already enacted EPR legislation, and you can see states that have bills proposed to enact them themselves. And the state of Maine was one of the first to enact EPR legislation. This to me is a game changer for recycling. It's going to give recycling a real shot in the arm. We've been kind of coasting now for a long time with recycling. Some of it because of participation isn't great. Some of it because we don't have newspapers anymore. There's a whole host of reasons why, but there's still a large portion of the waste stream that doesn't need to go to the waste energy plant, that doesn't need to go to the landfill, can easily be recovered and is a marketable item. Excuse me. I'm going to just continue with my presentation if you don't mind, and then we can come back to EPR if you have more questions. And my last couple of slides actually talk about your situation, specifically when it comes to EPR. I did want to mention the people of EcoMaine. This is kind of a cool thing that we offer. We actually have an internship program with Maine Maritime. And so we put those folks, our boiler operators, come up to us as interns as they're going to school. They work a few summers with us, and then they're there for us, hopefully, to hire and keep those folks right here in Maine. These are trained positions. They're boiler operators. They have intensive training, and keeping them here in Maine, I think, is kind of a cool thing for the state of Maine. Excuse me. I mentioned the new recycling facility. We call it a MRF. You don't have to remember that acronym. It's a recycling facility. This is being built right across the street from the old facility. So there won't be any void in time in processing materials because we're building the new one as we continue to operate the old one. The old facility will be eventually be repurposed into handling new community waste. So as we are growing, we're going to need more real estate to manage those additional tons coming to us. So we do have plans for that facility as well. But you can see on the next page, which is page 21, you can see that the industry has really changed from a more manual or mechanical sortation to an optical sortation. So we use infrared technology that scans the conveyor belt, looks for the material that you program the scanner to identify, and then it identifies it on the conveyor belt and then uses air to direct it to the correct bin. So it's separated and then can be later baled and then shipped out to market. On the next page, you can see kind of what the inside of the new facility will look like. This is an existing facility with an addition. The piece on the right is an addition to the facility, but this is the old Sturbridge Yankee warehouse that we've just kind of repurposed into a recycling facility. It's about a 50-year-old steel warehouse that is really perfect for a recycling facility. On the next page is actually a picture of optical sortation. So you can see what automation is doing for us. Just to give you a comparison, you or I, if we're standing on a conveyor belt and we're sorting different commodities, we can do about 30 I bet you can do about 40, and maybe you can do 50 picks per minute. These optical sorters can do about 1,200 picks per minute. So it's just out of the world as far as efficiency goes. That'll allow us to grow. That'll allow us to be more efficient in processing these types of recyclable materials. And then, of course, I always want to make a plug for our empowering sustainable schools. We like to say that we're everywhere. We want to be in the schools. If you're associated with school, let us know. We will be there in a moment's notice. We want to be in the classroom. We're giving tours. We want to be at the fairs and festivals to make sure that we're staying connected to our communities at all times. So the next page is the next few slides is about Lyman. So on page 26, or actually 27, I put together your tons, and you can see, as you might expect, you're seeing some increase in tons over time, and that's oftentimes because you have more residents in your community, or families could be getting bigger. But also, too, you can see where your recycling is. Don't be too discouraged by your recycling because, as I mentioned before, newspapers have disappeared. And that was 90%, 10 or 15 years ago of what we collected was newspapers in our recycling programs. Newspapers have been replaced by plastic, metal, and glass in box containers. So they don't have the weight that the newspapers had. And so that's one variable. But also, too, you also know that there's always room for improvement. And so your recycling rate looks like it's hovering at about 10% or so over the last couple of years. And so on the next slide, what I showed is what our average recycling rate is from our communities. So we have communities that are recycling as low as 3%, and we have communities that are recycling almost 50%. So how can that be? So different communities have different types of programs. One of the things is convenience. You have to make recycling as convenient as dumping your trash. If it's not as convenient, you'll never reach the full potential of what recycling recovery has to offer. But I do believe that most of our communities can reach at least the average, which is a third or 33% recycling rate. That is something that I believe is achievable. By doing so, you would be moving your recycling tons from 169 tons up to 583 tons. The reason why that's important is because the costs of you handling those additional tons are eligible for reimbursement, as I mentioned before, on the recycling side, but are not eligible for reimbursement or partial reimbursement on the trash side. So if you leave them in the trash and you do nothing, you will be paying more each and every year while your neighbors could be paying less. And that's why it's so important to try to encourage residents with the best programs that you can offer, and we can help you do that, to move tons over to the recycling side, because historically it was on the town's backs. You had to pay for it all. Now you have a fund available to you. You can't ask me what's in the fund. You can't ask me what percent of the fund of your recycling costs will be covered because it is a new program. But there is a fund, and that's what you want to be first in line to tap into, because you're paying for it one way or another. If you do nothing, you're paying for it on the trash side, you'll never get it. If you switch some of those tons over to recycling, then at least you're eligible for some level of reimbursement. When we talk about packaging, when we sell material, most of the material we're processing is packaging: plastic, metal, and glass containers, and paper and fiber boxes. That's most of what we're selling, and it's only increasing. And so this program relates to packaging. And so that's the majority of the material. And that's why it's a significant amount of money. So in summary, EcoMaine continues to grow. Our blueprint is continued growth. We want more communities to join our regional approach so that we can continue to enjoy an economy of scale that makes sense for our member communities. Unfortunately, staying small becomes more expensive. So with that, be happy to entertain any questions that you have. Sorry for my voice.
Would you like some water?
I do have water. Thank you.
Vicki, may I speak?
Yes, please.
I think the biggest reason why I wanted you to come down is because this is very new, like it's going into effect in a month. And like you stated a couple of times, the more we recycle, the more money we'll get back on that other end. So that was kind of what I wanted everybody else to hear, not only from me, like, and I say it all the time, but I think that we need to like work, like you said, build up our recycling so that we're not leaving money on the table with this. So.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I understand this correctly, we're right now recycling about maybe 10%.
Yeah.
Are you saying that we have to get up to maybe the average 33% for the town to get a cut of this fund?
No,
What's the
you don't
criteria?
have to. You at 10%, you will get 10%.
Okay.
You know, a much smaller ratio
Okay.
of the fund because you're not recovering as much as perhaps somebody else is. So, you know, again, I don't know how many millions of dollars there's going to be in this fund,
Mhm.
but there's going to be money available in the communities that recycle the most
Mhm.
are going to be the ones who are first in line for those reimbursements. And so that's why it's so important for you. You know, I've done my own in the back of the napkin analysis on this. And all I can tell you is the reimbursements, the way the rules read, are going to be significant. So, and what a lot of towns don't realize is this covers the collection costs are eligible, your hauling costs are eligible, and your processing costs that you pay us are eligible for reimbursement. So one of the things that we talk a lot about at our board, and it's hard for board members to accept this, is that we are recycling used to be free. We subsidized it with the tipping fee from collecting trash and processing trash. And so it was always free because we wanted to provide that incentive to our municipalities to offer recycling programs. Well, now that recycling programs are more mature, a lot of them have been around for 20, 30 years. This new program no longer has that mindset. And so the idea here is that we are going to charge the full price of recycling, which we are actually gearing up from going from $0 a ton to $130 a ton. It'll basically be just about the same as solid waste over time. Now, some people will say, well, if you make it as much as solid waste disposal is, then people aren't going to participate. And that is a good argument. However, on the recycling side, you get some of that money back. On the trash side, you don't. So the reimbursements, the net cost, you know, if recycling is costing you $130 a ton, and it's increased dramatically over time, if it's $130 a ton, you will send that bill at $130 a ton times your 500 tons, or your 169 if you don't do anything, 169 tons. You will send that bill into the stewardship organization, which will be hired by the state of Maine. And that is what you will be eligible for a reimbursement, a portion of that. So you will send our bill in. You will also send the bill that you get from your collector, which on January 1st, you want to make sure that your collection company itemizes recycling from disposal, collection, hauling, so that you have those costs separated, because if you keep them together, you'll have no way of proving what your recycling cost is. So we're telling our municipalities to go to their collector and make sure that when they haul it, that they keep recycling hauling separate from trash hauling. And my understanding is, if I'm correct, Amber, you don't have any curbside recycling, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you don't have trash collection curbside either.
Correct.
So everything goes to the transfer station. So your costs at the transfer station on the recycling side are reimbursable, eligible for reimbursable reimbursements, but they're not on the trash side. So if you have different components at the transfer station, you'll want to itemize those recycling costs as well. So there's a bit of paperwork. I don't think it's going to be hard.
Mhm.
Again, growing pains for the first few years, yes. But once you get up to speed, I think it'll be fairly generic. And cities and towns will be able to do this.
Madam Chair, I hope it might be a follow-up question.
Sure.
But again, you mentioned that the producers, manufacturers will be paying into this fund. Are we talking about Amazon, Chewy, or the companies that make the boxes that Amazon and Chewy use?
No, because the Chewy and the brands, basically,
Mhm.
the detergents and things like that, they're making the choice on what packages to use. So, it's competitive. Whether, remember that cardboard, detergent used to come in a cardboard box at one time. And then they switched to a bottle. And now they have, they have sacks or flexible containers of the pods. So there's really, it's the brands that are choosing what type of packaging. And what this law does is it incentivizes the brands to use readily recyclable packaging, because then they won't have to pay into the fund. So for example, the most extreme example would be that the milk jugs or the aluminum cans. Those items pay for themselves. So they won't have to pay for the recycling of those items, because the value that you as an owner, collect from selling that material covers the expense of processing that material. But if you are selling your product in a flexible package, like a bag or an item that's not recyclable, then you're going to pay the full cost of either disposing of that item or the heavy cost of recycling. So, for example, the most notable one is styrofoam. Okay, not readily recyclable. If it's a container, which a lot of styrofoam is, not all, but some containers are styrofoam, that is a very expensive item. It's either going to be burned, or it's going to be landfilled, or it's going to be very expensive because we have to truck styrofoam. And guess what? It doesn't weigh anything. It's air. So we're trucking air. So that will incentivize brands perhaps not to use the styrofoam and to use another product.
So can I assume that our costs are going up anyway, but the amount that we collect to reduce our footprint per se will come back to the town, but our costs are still going to go up?
Your costs are going up. For example, your tipping fee January or July 1st is going up 3% for trash. It's going up more than that for recycling, again, because of the reimbursements that will be available to communities. Because we're trying, if our communities don't charge themselves for recycling, they're not eligible, because they have no bill to send into the state for reimbursement. So that's why we've changed the blueprint on how our fees work associated with recycling. One of our comments early on, in the development of this program was, look, our communities subsidize recycling. We want to subsidize it in order to get the towns to offer their program. But in order to put this program together, in order to charge the brands the appropriate pricing associated with running these programs, they had to know what the cost was. And if you don't keep track of the cost, there's no way to charge the brands.
When's the next step for us, like our bins, the bins,
As far as
when people will start to get them?
what bins?
The
Composting?
food compost bins?
Oh, that, yeah,
Compost.
separate from this, we're waiting for the DEP permit.
Oh, so it's not part of
It's
the
not
waste
part of this at all. No, that's just another, that we're working on getting a food waste
Oh, great.
diversion program. So we're just waiting for our transfer station license amendment. And then we'll start the educational piece with that. That's when people will get the bins and the containers.
Okay.
But that will just pull that out of the trash. So
So
that will
offsets
make,
the waste.
it will
the
offset-
weight. not
yes,
waste.
the weight
Tonnage.
of the MSW, yeah. So.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. Maybe they will start charging food companies for, for food.
There's a lot of different types of EPR. And we're focused right now on packaging, but there's EPR for batteries, rechargeable
Mhm.
batteries, hazardous waste. I mean, there are dozens and dozens of different ways to pay for those programs. And, you know, for example, the rechargeable batteries, which everybody has today, they're not going away. Municipalities can't afford to collect and recycle those materials. And those materials are going to become more and more challenging. A lot of them, most of them are still ending up in the waste stream because most people don't separate their rechargeable batteries. I'm just picking on rechargeable batteries because we all have them right now. But that's an item that there's no way that municipalities can carry the cost of properly disposing or recycling those items. Municipalities can't afford that. And so that's an example of EPR, where the people who make those things, in this case, not packaging, but an item, need to be responsible for the disposal of those items. So they need to figure that into their costs so that it's not borne by the municipalities.
Wow.
Pretty sure this was only fun for me.
No, I don't mean-
I am.
no.
I gained a lot of insight and information.
You're
I
always
appreciate
welcome to tour our facilities. We do a lot of tours, and so we invite you up for that, and be happy to work with you in any way we can. Again, I want to thank Amber for setting this up. This means a lot to us because we have to stay connected to our municipalities.
I'm sorry. The reason why I asked the question before is that I think we've all experienced the situation where you order an item that's this big and it comes in a box that big. That's what I was asking about the distributors, the Amazons and the Chewies and such. Are they going to bear any of the brunt or make any kind of adjustments to their practices to reduce any liability that they have?
Yeah. I don't know if you've noticed, but like Amazon in particular, since you mentioned them, they used to send everything in a cardboard box, and then they started switching over to the bag that nobody could open unless you had a razor blade or a scissors. But have you noticed that they've kind of gone back to a fiber package again, some type of fiber? And the reason why they have is because the consumer wants something that they can put in the recycling bin. They don't want something that they have to toss away. So it's already happening to some extent. And that's why that's why I mentioned the mixed paper slide that I talked about. I think demand for mixed paper is going to go up because the consumer ultimately is driving that because they feel better about a paper package when possible. We're never getting rid of, I don't think in my lifetime, we're getting rid of the plastic trash bag. Their plastic serves a purpose for some items. But for items that can be packaged in a fiber container, the consumer seems to prefer. And the only reason why I say that, and it's just not my opinion, but the investments that are being made into old paper mills that used to make paper that closed are now opening because they're investing millions and millions of dollars into these plants to make packaging. And they wouldn't be doing that just to feel good about themselves. They're doing it because the consumer prefers it. I believe that anyway. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for the
very much.
opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right, so we'll move back on to the GA. Great. Yeah, 2025 revised general assistant ordinance and amendments to the maximums.
Madam Chair, I propose that I move that we adopt the proposed amendment as written.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous.
Excuse me, Lindsay, you said there might be some training involved. You let us know about that.
Yeah, it's usually through MMA. Do you guys get those email updates of the stuff
Yep.
that comes through?
Every day.
Okay. So if I don't see it, I would look there. If you see anything pop up GA related.
Okay, I have seen one like a month ago.
Okay.
I thought it was for the GA resource person, so
It's for them too, yeah.
Okay, but this is required, right? This would be required.
That's my understanding, yeah, because you guys are overseers of the poor,
Yeah.
so I handed you like a little MMA
Yep.
handout thing, and it mentions something about, it specifically says overseers are now required to take training. So
Yeah.
whereas it used to just be GA, now it's you guys and GA.
Okay,
Alrighty. So then we will move along. Public input, public in attendance will have up to 5 minutes to address the board. I have asked Carrie Jo to keep track of the timer. Please use the podium to address the board and please be respectful of others. The board may not be able to respond to question and answers during public comment. If you wish to be placed on a future agenda, please contact the town manager. Anybody like to speak? Did you want to speak? Okay. Since there's nobody that wants to do that, we will move on to unfinished business. Do we have any franchise agreement updates?
No.
Okay, item B is the RFP for the generator and the transfer switch.
I've not received any bids for that, so
Still,
I can put it out again. And just,
Knock down the price.
what's that?
Knock down the price.
did
Yeah.
did we do that?
We knocked it down like 500, so maybe we knocked down a little bit more. It's a pretty good generator. I mean, it's been serviced every year. If anyone in the room's interested.
I am, but there's no way. There is no way. Oh, shoot.
So knock it down to 300.
300 or 3,000?
3,000.
I'll take it.
Well, sold.
Right, yeah.
There you go. Deal.
So I would also, just for the sake of discussion, if we keep dropping it, people are gonna be waiting for us to keep dropping it.
Mm.
Do you think there's any, like a nonprofit or something else that we might consider making a donation of it to in time? I mean, if we don't get any takers, I don't know. I'm just for the sake of
I
discussion.
think that's a great
I'm just
idea.
bringing it up.
Mhm.
But,
It'd be worth looking into.
Yeah.
Okay.
so for now, what do you think? Go $3,000?
Sounds good.
Good to everybody? C, Carrie Jo Sampson, update on tax assistance seminar.
Lindsay printed it out. It's not really much more, just, we're trying to get a tax assistance seminar for February. It's peak tax season, so it's going to be really hard to do, but we're going to plug ahead. We've been in touch with Maine Society of CPAs and York County Outreach, so we're still waiting to hear from them. That's it. And the newsletter is going to be longer than it was last one, so it's a lot more information. That's great.
Today was the correct deadline for,
The correct deadline, but if people need more time, Amber reached out, so if people need more time, just let me know today, tomorrow at the latest, so I can get an idea of where to fit it.
okay. Move to item 4, Fire Commission Fire Chief request for funds to be released from capital. Do you want me to read this? Or, this is from Chief Martin to us. I'm writing to formally request your approval to release funds from the building capital reserve not to exceed $16,000, which is $8,000 from Lyman and $8,000 from Dayton. This money will be utilized to purchase a replacement gear washing machine. Our current washing machine has been out of service for approximately 2 months. The current machine is 20+ years old and has served our department well. We did attempt some repairs, however, many parts are no longer made, and putting more money into an aged machine is not in the best interest of our department and the towns. The replacement machine we're looking to purchase is made specifically for fire gear and washes to NFPA maintenance standards, helping to protect the longevity and quality of our equipment. And then says the Unimac gear washer is $15,500. And the utilities hookup is $500, so the project total is $16,000, $8,000 from each town. Do you know if Dayton has voted on this already yet?
They are tonight.
They are tonight. Thank you.
Mhm.
If you guys wouldn't mind if I speak to this a
Sure.
little bit,
Sure,
I
sure.
can add to it. Being on the fire commission, the gear washer currently is pretty much junk. And one day, I was on my way home and I saw a gentleman that works at the fire department. He was outside in the parking lot. And he was doing something, but I drove in and I spoke to him for a minute, and he was out there in the parking lot washing blood off his gear. And it was the most heartbreaking thing to me, because here we have these gentlemen that are putting their life on the line and they're out there having to scrub their gear out in the parking lot. I just thought that was really not good. And then my heart went out to him, and I just wanted to tell that story.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the $8,000 expense for the replacement of the washing machine for specifically the gear that's used by the fire department.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion or any discussion?
Yeah, just one question. Would that be coming out of the reserve fund that has $105,000 in it?
So the fund that the chief is requesting it come out of has $35,271. You won't find it on that report,
No.
Joe, because that's general fund.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed because it's unanimous. Thank you. Let's see. We have the treasurer expense report also in the packet. I'm sure everybody's reviewed that. And item 5, new business, town cloud update, Trio payment review and approve funds out of computer reserve. Can you speak to that too, please?
Yeah, so Jeanette has been, and myself too, have been working on the Trio updates with TownCloud. Not everything is ready, is my understanding. So we are going to move forward January 1st, it sounds like, with some of the financial sections. Then as they're developing like motor vehicles and assessing, we're going to kind of move into those modules. But obviously we want to make sure that they have those things like fully developed before we move into it. So we planned for this, and I think Jeanette could speak a little better to like how it's going to work out. We don't have to pay for TownCloud until we're like fully live. They said to us that they would honor that. So we will probably have to pay a little bit into Trio more than we anticipated, because we thought we would just roll this out January 1st, all of it. But if we can only roll out the financials and still have to do everything else in Trio, then we're going to have to continue buying some of those Trio modules until we fully roll into TownCloud. And Jeanette, you can speak to like how that works out.
So currently their financial package is ready to go. I plan on moving into that January 1st. The front end, which is the point of sale package, is hung up at the state while they get BMV approval. So once they get that, then we can bring the point of sale system to the front desk. Didn't seem to make any sense to bring that before the BMV was ready. We talked back last year, we purchased 6 months worth of Trio. And where I'm requesting to purchase 6 months for the POS, the point of sale module, the assessing module, and the payroll module, up until that they can get those up and running. BMV, we're expecting, but they keep coming back with, well, what about this scenario? What about that scenario? So hopefully it won't take 6 months to get that going. But I will be going on January 1st with the financial package. And then will purchase the next 6 months for all the other modules. And we will need to take 2,771, I believe, from the computer reserve.
$2,777.71.
Okay, I was on vacation
Yeah,
last
you were.
week. I was close.
Yep.
So we'll be asking for you guys to make a motion on that. And the check is in your AP warrant, ready to go, which we can always hold it if you're not agreeable to it.
No, I mean, we did the best we could when we were budgeting.
Yeah.
And best case scenario or what we thought was gonna happen. And if it hasn't happened, I mean, we still gotta cover
Yep.
ourselves to be able to run.
And we had put money in there, and we talked about, well, maybe we might have to take some to limp us along. They've been very good at building the bridge between Trio and Town Cloud to get the journal entries in there and ready to go.
Sergeant, is the computer reserve amount on the expense report?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I can.
Okay.
Want me to get it? You want-
No, I'm just asking the balance.
Let me
About,
grab it.
okay.
Isn't it right here?
Yeah, the balance is 20,000, right?
Yeah,
893.
So we're good.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, I must have done that before.
you did.
Mm-hmm.
That's a motion you're looking for right now.
Correct.
So I'll make a motion in the amount of 2777.71 coming from the computer reserve account.
Second.
Any discussion?
You said it was on the checklist, check register?
Yes, it's made out to Harris. Their program is called Trio, but the company is called Harris.
Got it, thanks.
Any more questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, aye, sorry.
Okay, everybody, it's unanimous, thank you.
I'm going to excuse myself to go to the restroom.
Item B is discussion regarding special town meeting to request funds for difference in the library budget.
Yep.
And that would be, Jeanette, speak to that?
Yeah.
You or,
Yeah, we both can.
So back in fall time, I notified you that when we wrote the budget, I wrote in the $24.25 dollar amount requested by the library, not the $25.26. You have in your packet, I believe, the budget worksheet that we
Mhm.
did and their actual request. So we've tossed it around and said, okay, maybe we can take it from somewhere inside the budget, and that may still be a possibility. However, because everything goes into general fund, if we have $10,000 somewhere, it's gonna go into general fund. So in order to just get through this, I said to Lindsay, why don't we just take it out of general fund and do a special town meeting? And then we're over and done that hump, and we can move on. So that's what we're looking to do.
yeah, I mean, I know that at the time when you brought that up, we kind of sat on it to see
Mhm.
if that could happen, and you don't really see that happening.
It's probably going to happen. We have a couple of other things we're gonna be discussing with you. So any excess funds that are in the budget go into fund balance. So we were thinking, okay, let's just get this through and let's finish this off
Mhm.
and take it out of fund balance, because if there is excess funds in the budget, it's going to go into fund balance
Right,
anyway, so it
that's
kind
true.
of is a net wash.
Yeah. So, when would you propose having a special town meeting?
Lindsay did a timeline
calendar.
for
I
you. I
did.
believe it's
I
in
don't know
your
if I printed
packet.
myself a
Oh,
copy.
Is it?
And
Yep.
How did
So-
I-
Oh,
That's it, yeah.
They'll have like,
Oh, okay. I missed
Yeah,
that,
sorry.
it's even color coded.
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess.
once,
She's
so
awesome.
there's, yeah, we'll have to determine when you guys want to do that. And then the budget committee will have to review it. So you guys we'd come up with a dollar amount, what you're going to put in your warrant. The budget committee would have to review that. Then we'd do a public hearing and then you do a town meeting. So you could do it like we've always kind of done the special town meeting ones, like 30, maybe 45 days, because that seems to give enough time to gather the information, put the notice out there, get everyone involved in it. So it's looking like kind of towards mid to late January.
Sorry,
And
Lindsay,
we
is that
don't
the
have
yellow?
to, yeah. I guess I didn't print myself off a copy,
You
but
want mine? I can cheat off Joe's.
yeah, sure.
Here, you can have mine. No.
Too late, Eric. Too late.
I'm not,
Sherry's got really.
well,
Oh.
I don't look at it, so.
Yeah, that's the
That's
public hearing. And then, so you can have the town meeting. We'd probably look at maybe the week of January 12th.
Mhm.
We probably, I guess we don't need to decide right now, like precisely when the town meeting is going to happen. But we would want to know, like, are you going to move forward with that? Because then the first step is Jeanette and I are going to draft the warrant. And then we would get that to you guys and then get it to the budget committee.
Is this the only item that you would foresee being on this warrant for the special town meeting?
We've kind of tossed it around. There might be another one that we're gonna discuss with you later on today. So, this is the only one that's come up so far.
So I'm gonna
We've
try-
been waiting to make sure that that doesn't happen.
I'm going to try a motion. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
So I make a motion to have a special town meeting to vote on the difference from the, is it the library? $11,497 for public hearing and special town meetings within the timeframes as allowed in the charter.
Second.
Any more discussion at all?
I'm sorry, I keep on referring to the expense report, but on page 10 of what we received, it doesn't show any expenditures. Oh, unexpended balance. Okay, it has been expended. My apologies.
Yeah,
I misread it.
I've written it in there.
Got it. Okay.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And you're abstaining?
Okay. So, yeah, I'll put that together and maybe by the 15th, we can probably talk more about like when town
Yes.
meeting will happen and all that stuff. So
Mhm.
I'll have more information then.
Item C is to review contingency funds for a well pump replacement at the transfer station.
Yep. So they,
Yes, yeah, I guess so.
what's that?
Can anybody else?
It's an
No,
invisible
I'm
ink.
sorry. It's a carbon copy. So that's just, that's how it scans in. So I wrote down on the other side, it was $2,400 even.
Hmm.
And transfer station, just no water one day, nothing.
Hmm.
So they needed a new well pump and it's just, I think with OSHA requirements and what they have to work with up there, they need water to clean their hands.
Yep.
Can you read what the horsepower is on the pump?
No. And then I'd have to get the pink one.
It looks like half.
Yeah. You know, so we've already purchased it, but it'll have to come out of the contingency account, which you have 2,500.
Would it be able to come out of capital improvement or because
You,
it's improving
you
the
can't.
quality of
No. So the rule of thumb that I understand is you can't use capital improvement for maintenance, like maintenance and
It's a-
upkeep. So if something breaks, you know, just because you have to fix it, if you're making an improvement, that's one thing, but this is something broke and we have to fix it.
Could we, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, could we take it out of supplies for the transfer station? Because I think there's a balance of $4,200 there.
That, you know, it's early in the year. So if they need something, supplies, you probably might not be able to take that out of contingency. And I don't know, usually from when I talked with Jeanette, they were like pretty close. Last year, they came
I
in pretty
suppose.
close towards the end of the year.
Nice.
They budgeted pretty tight. Like Randy knows exactly, like he keeps track of what he needs and what he's purchasing and ordering and what he's getting. So he doesn't usually have a lot of wiggle room. I just don't want to rob them of that. And then something comes up in like May.
So you obviously did diligence to where the best spot to take it from, and
Yeah, this
And we're
is,
looking at the
this is the
contingency.
perfect reason for a contingency fund. We have buildings and grounds care and maintenance accounts, but those are very, very small. And we're whipping through those pretty fast this year. So this would be perfect for the contingency fund. That's kind of where we're at. And, you know, like I said, at the end of the year, if there's money left over in supplies, it goes into the general fund. If there's money left over in contingency, it goes in, well, it's on a revolving right now, but this is one of those things where it's expensive. It's not overly expensive, but it's expensive enough that we didn't budget for it.
Right.
Okay.
Since we're already discussing it, can I make a motion so we can continue to discuss it? I'll make a motion to pay for this pump, was it $2,500?
24.
$2,400, sorry, thank you, $2,400 out of the contingency account.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Yes? That would be me. But the motion carries nonetheless. And we'll move on to item number 6, which is to review and approve the meeting minutes from the 17th.
So moved.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. The only thing I can see, and usually I don't bring up any typos, usually just do those in private. However, there's one in here under D, review and approve Funky Bow Special Amusement Parks, that I think is very hilarious. Because it says that there has been, didn't want to have the public hearing because there's been no written complaints. They are changing their horns and will be closing in the winter. So I don't know, that just cracked me up.
Mhm.
So I think it's supposed to be hours.
Hours.
Oh, yeah.
But it says that they're changing their horns. I just found it hilarious, so anyway. All those in favor?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
You got-
I'm sorry, just a quick one on page 3H. I think it should read that the motion fails 050. Because what it reads 005, that would mean all 5 of us abstain, and that's not the case.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I
What
didn't even
was-
notice that.
Which one was that, Joe?
That was
can't believe you
third
didn't
page,
I just
H.
saw 5.
Motion fails 005.
Review approved committee
And it
resignation.
should be 050.
Yeah, usually I
Mhm.
usually ask, like, if you send them before, I can just make those adjustments so that at least the one you sign is all drafted up.
It's that one ringing ding.
Mhm.
No, that was like 3 reading days. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Warrant. Payroll warrant number 25 in the amount of $30,468.48.
So moved.
Second.
Oop, go ahead, Joe.
No, that's
Moved and
okay.
Seconded,
You got
any
Dave.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Accounts payable warrant number 24 in the amount of $820,434.57.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And no one's opposed. It's unanimous.
We want to do the GA thing as well.
We just did that after.
After the presentation.
We did?
We did.
Did I vote on it?
I think
Yeah.
we did.
Before you start on the last
Very-
one,
Excuse me?
I'm gonna go potty. Be right back.
Oh. Take a small break then.
Sorry, I just have to check on your screen, make sure it's not freezing. No, that works.
That's sweet. Gotta hold a lot of pictures.
No, probably no pictures.
Alright. So what we have is, next on the agenda is item number 3, unfinished business, which is the complaint that was submitted by M. Felicetti. And I think that we all know about it. We've had the required, the paperwork involved that you guys, that was not, it's not being done in executive session. And I think that we should have a few little housekeeping things, and I don't, if anybody doesn't agree with this, I'd like to hear about it.
Well, can I ask
Can we,
one question
yes,
before you do the housekeeping? Is everybody agreed to have the fair hearing officer hearing,
yep,
correct?
yes.
Are we not better off waiting for the fair hearing officer and then do this?
Well, we just approved the minutes from the last meeting,
Yeah,
and,
I understand. I understand it's in there.
and that
But
is,
I'm asking the question now.
this is gonna be done in addition,
Mhm.
the fair hearing officer.
Right, I'm
And
just
you
saying-
do have a good point,
I'm saying chronological
Yeah.
order, that's all. Is
because,
it better off to hear from the fair hearing officer prior to what we're about to?
Well, the way I read it is the fair hearing board is supposed to be if due process is not obtained, which this is, would come first. Okay.
It's up
Correction
to
on
you
that?
guys.
That's how it's written in the charter, so. Am I misunderstanding that?
I believe so.
so
Bueller,
then,
anybody?
I don't think there's a chronological order of that.
Before
No.
any complaint, grievance, or concern is brought before the fair hearing board, all other avenues internal to town government for addressing such matters must be exhausted. The fair hearing board determines that due process was not provided. If it determines that, it can refer the matter to a different source for resolution or investigate it and give an alternative how it should be addressed.
Agreed,
So-
but we agreed that it would go to the fair hearing board. It's only a question.
Well, I have
It's-
one thing to say. You said if all other internal processes have been exhausted, right?
Right.
So your internal process is complaints go to my office for review. This one's unusual because it's against 3 elected officials. So, either if it were against like an employee, I would investigate that complaint and then figure out how to deal with it. That's your internal process. Like, that's my recommendation was fair hearing because I don't think you guys want me reviewing a complaint against, Joe, Karen, and KJ.
Well, I thought that was the point of tonight, was to discuss it and see if there's some understanding, and if not, then the fair hearing board's already getting the stuff as of today.
what I was gonna suggest
Sure.
is that we stick to the information at hand, that we don't talk over each other. It's emotional, I understand, I can feel the emotion, I feel emotion over it. And so what I would really like to do is to have it be respectful, one person at a time speaks.
Yep.
And I'm sure all of us have thoughts on it. So to me, the importance of in us being in the public, and somebody has a concern or a complaint, I would want them to feel heard. So anyone would want that respect, right? So I really don't know how to proceed either, because this is a little different than anything we've ever done. But would you like to be able to speak?
Yes, do you want to say or do you want me?
Well, I guess my thing is like hearings that I've had to deal with is usually like the complainant usually has their complaint to speak about whatever information they want to bring to that table. Then you have the rebuttals, and then you have like questions. So it's not quite like a public hearing, but each party involved, gets to
That's
hash that out.
kind of the way I was thinking
Yeah.
that we should handle it also, right along those lines. And that's kind of where I was going, so.
Yeah, so I think you can bring, what you'd like to bring.
So I have other information because like they get a chance to review my complaint. And so then I've had a chance to review their complaint and gather some information. So I'll just start. To the officials who took part in these actions, Select Board members Joe Wagner, Budget Committee member Karen Kane, and Select Board member Carrie Jo Sampson. This must be said plainly and directly. You broke the rules, not accidentally, not unknowingly, but in ways you openly described, defended, and justified in your own written submissions. You didn't uphold the charter. You didn't uphold the code of ethics. You didn't uphold the Select Board's own code of conduct. And you did not uphold the committee handbook that governs every board, every committee, and every volunteer in this town. What you did is shadow governance. You held private invitation-only meetings at a budget committee member's home. I'm not sure if it was one time or how many. 812 pages of emails will do that. You conducted substantive deliberations about town trails, grants, budgeting, gate location, reimbursement mechanics, long-term planning, and project feasibility. Not in public, not at town hall, not under notice, and not with the town manager, but behind closed doors with a hand-picked group of participants. You created an unofficial, unaccountable working group that operated outside every required public process. You didn't just bend the rules, you walked around them. The charter is clear. Select Board acts as a body, in public, under the full scrutiny of the people. It doesn't act as pairs, cliques, or private coalitions. And it certainly does not act in the living room of a board member. If the ethics code is clear, officials must avoid the appearance of impropriety, not manufacture it. Officials must make policies through proper channels, not create new channels in secret. Officials must protect public trust, not undermine it through secrecy and exclusion. The could be handbook is clear. Town business cannot be conducted in private homes. Town deliberations cannot occur by email. Cross-board activities cannot proceed without public notice. You violated every one of these expectations and then insisted that nothing was wrong, but something was very wrong. There is also repeated claims that a 2024 Select Board vote gave Joe and Karen ongoing authority to pursue grants is misleading and no longer accurate. While the board did authorize them to explore grants in 2024, that permission existed under the old policy framework, and it expired when the board adopted a comprehensive formal grant policy in June of 2025. The new policy centralized all grant initiation, exploration, and administration under the town manager, prohibited individual board members from independently pursuing or planning grants, and required public process and the board authorization for any relative activity. As elected officials, Joe and Karen had a clear duty to recognize that new policy governing the same subject required them to stop, seek clarification, and confirm nothing had changed, relying on outdated authority while ignoring a newer binding policy. The claim that the 2024 vote is still empowering them is not a defense, it's an admission that they failed to fulfill their duty to operate under current policy, failed to seek required clarification, and failed in the basic responsibility every public official has to follow the rules in effect today, not the ones that existed yesterday. What you did eroded the most sacred currency in local government, trust. Trust that town business will be done in the open. Trust that residents will be informed of discussions that are affecting their community. Trust that Select Board members, the highest elected officials of this town, will not operate from the shadows or create their own decision-shaping groups behind closed doors. Instead of acknowledging the harm, each of you responded with technicalities, excuses, FOIA definitions, and personal interpretations of the rules that suit your defense. But the rules are not up for interpretation. They're not optional. They're not situational. They're required. And the community deserves officials to respect them. So let's state it clearly. You didn't just violate the policy. You violated the public's right to transparency, fairness, and good governance. You undermined the structure that protects the people from backroom government. You weakened the integrity of the institutions you were elected to and appointed to uphold. And you set a precedent that small groups of officials can privately shape the town direction without the public ever knowing. The community should not have to accept this. The town should not have to accept this. And no elected or appointed official should ever expect the public to tolerate this. It is time right now for accountability, for reflection, and for an honest recognition of the seriousness of these actions. No excuses, no loopholes, no arguments about what's done and what does or does not trigger a FOIA. Accountability. The people of Lyman deserve no less. And that's after reading your statements, going through the emails. There's so much more to it. So much more. In the emails, there's things, is everyone okay if I speak to so-and-so? I'm going to try not to mention names because I just don't like doing that. And that's okay by me. Those are decisions that are being made. This all came about because a person had a problem with what was going on and went to Amber. Amber FOIA'd your stuff. Now, everyone likes to say, I got it from Amber. We don't cross that line. She's an elected member. I'm an elected person as well. I FOIA'd it myself. Amber gave me nothing. Even though by rights, she could have given me everything she had. But I would never put her in that position. Amber had some things going on in her life, which is why I said I would look into it. And that's just how I got here. So I didn't, out of nowhere, come up with this. Someone from the public had a problem with what you were doing and found out about it. And here we are. In reading the emails, you're talking about money, the $25,000. At a meeting, after the meeting, you approached Dave Alves, and I heard you asking Dave about $25,000 for Bunganut. And it was to move a building to Bunganut. He's saying no. But anyways, that's why I asked afterwards, it's like moving a building from where? Does the town manager know about this? And she didn't. She didn't know about the meetings that were going on, about the trails. You're calling Sanford Parks and Rec, Three Rivers. Decisions are being made in these emails to contact places regarding trails. That's town business. These are town assets. The public should have a right to know about these things and have a say in it. Where was the invite for CPC to walk the trails? We're doing planning right now for the whole town for the comprehensive plan. Where was the invite for us to see it and know what's going on and get the vision for the townspeople? We're collecting surveys, giving information, holding hearings, so people can know what's going on in town and see it. We weren't invited. And I didn't even see a notice going out that there was going to be a walk over there. If grant writing was sanctioned and approved by the select board, why use private email addresses? You have a town email address, and town business should be conducted through town emails. And that's not being done. So if you're looking at grants to do these things, why is there no emails? All these were through private emails, which circumvents the FOIA process.
Mine were town emails.
Not all of them.
Okay,
That's,
sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, that's okay. As elected officials, we're held to a higher standard. You're in the position of power. And that should be the first and foremost thing we think about when we do anything. I seem to remember a bridge, and I seem to be pretty quick to point out who was building the bridge. And you, Joe, said, we must avoid impairs impropriety at all costs during that meeting. And that was something the town manager knew about, had been cleared with her. Nothing had been circumvented. Any contact I had was through the town manager. Dave had contact through her. Everything was planned through her. Nothing was private. All easily trackable for anyone to know. But it got brought up like, you say, why don't we sit down and talk? No one sat down and talked before you brought that up. And then that went wildfire on Facebook for a while there. You keep saying, let's talk. People don't talk. Have you ever called Amber?
About
Anything. Even this, the FOIA. And you keep saying, let's talk. No one talks.
May I backtrack a little bit with respect to the bridge? Remember how I voted on that?
That's neither here nor there. You
No,
said
I
you
voted in
must-
favor of that.
you-
Just let the
yes,
record
but
show.
what I'm saying is, when
Your-
it was brought
your
up,
husband
and I was a
built it.
little
I
upset because
voted
the way
for
it
it.
was handled.
She did ask him a question, so
I
maybe she
understand,
doesn't
but
want an
I
answer.
can't
right now.
have
Okay.
people talking at the same time.
All right.
Who
It
can
was a
follow
tense
that?
time, and the way it was brought up was really, it looked like it was a devious thing that was being done by my husband building that bridge. And I know you voted for it, but the fact that you said those words, we must avoid the appearance of impropriety at all costs. This whole thing, all the emails, if anyone wants 812 pages of reading, there's some fun stuff in there. It's like, if you're someone saying, oh, does the town manager know we're meeting in a small group? Because I'm feeling paranoid. Another person says, I'm feeling paranoid too. It's in the packet. It's right there. And the response from you was, I told her we're meeting with Adam at the park. Yes, I told her meeting with Adam Park. But does she know you were meeting in a small group, at private group, at Karen's home? Should we be doing this? These are words that are all being said in these emails. In that alone should have told you, you shouldn't be doing it. It even, you're talking about money a lot in those emails. That's taxpayer money. When the initial budget was promoted for Bunganut, it was $60,000. And everyone almost lost their minds over $60,000, which is kind of funny. You know, they want it being what it is. But you would have had the money to maybe have a trails committee and do things there. And so, but going after what's that $25,000 for? And then Karen at a budget committee at our last meeting we had actually asked, well, how does one get money on a budget? Well, if you're not on a committee, what do you need money for? And now it kind of all makes sense with these emails. There's emails from Karen, constantly, and on the videos from when she was on Bunganut. She's not in support of any changes at Bunganut unless we have a master plan. Email after email, and this is taxpayers and in support of it. But here it is, you having phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. But when Bunganut did have a plan for phase 1 through 5, it wasn't good enough. And no one wanted to have anything to do with it because it wasn't a master plan. But if you're sitting there and you're planning phases, that's making decisions. Now, if you're just sitting around, hey, having a beer with a friend, talking about how it'd be great if it looked like this, that's great. But you were planning on what you were doing going somewhere. So that is whether you were making the decisions or not, right then and there, you were going to bring it to someone to either do a grant or bring it forward, unless you really just were meeting for fun, which that's not what the emails look like if you're making those kind of meetings and walking around and inspecting things. And like I said, you have the law, which is, sorry, I gotta get this one here. It is the intention of the subchapter of 22635, select board to act as a body, administrative service to be performed through town manager committees. It is the intention of the subchapter that the select board as a body shall exercise all administrative and executive powers of the town, except as provided in this subchapter. The select board shall deal with the administrative services solely through the town manager and may not give orders to any subordinates of the manager, either publicly or privately. This section does not prevent the select board from appointing committees or commissions of its own members or of citizens to conduct investigations into the conduct of any official or department or any other matter related to the welfare of the town. And MMA, I don't know if you guys saw the one from the lawyer, who they did get an opinion about meetings. And there's an excerpt from MMA. Unintended public proceedings. An unintended meeting occurs when a quorum of municipal officers, it doesn't say on board, municipal officers, discusses town business in a setting such as at the local hardware store or at a dinner with friends. It can also occur when board members have conversations on the telephone or by email, or before or after scheduled public meetings about board business. Public proceedings, even unintentional, are a violation of the right to know law. See Appendix 6 of the emailing board members outside public meetings. Legal notes. Maine Townsman, April 2012, email and right to know. Legal notes. Maine Townsman, October 1999, an email and right to know it too. Legal notes. Maine Townsman, February 2005. Obviously, the municipal offices are in no way legally prevented from meeting socially outside of public arena. On those occasions, however, every effort should be made to avoid discussing public business. The FOIA envisions that the substantive discussions of board business will occur only at public, advertised board meetings, Selway versus inhabitants of the town of Kittery, CV 60-73. And one thing that I would encourage you to look at is there was I don't know if anyone gets the Maine Town and City. So this is Maine Town and City for November 2025, which I found fitting for what's happening here.
Yeah.
In Lewiston, 2 city councilors have received rare censures for using secret email messaging app Signal, which encrypts messages and therefore thwarts public access and scrutiny, officials said. The council hired a private investigator to conduct an internal investigation. The resulting report confirmed that the councilors used the app to talk about city matters with a city employee who has since quit. Under the Maine Freedom of Access Act, elected officials must retain copies of all written communication, including electronic messages related to municipal matters that are subject to public access. Both counselors apologized to the council and public. They said the employee initiated the conversations using Signal and that they were unaware the messages would disappear. I did just want to have a conversation in executive session. We just could talk, but this is a more formalized proceeding doing it this way. Just stop. Just be clear. Just support the town manager in her role. And let all of the public be part of what's going on. Whereas my invite to your meeting. You know, maybe Amber wanted to go. Maybe Vicky wanted to go. Maybe the Snowmobile Club would have been a friggin' awesome organization to invite on a trail walk because they know how to do trails. There's so many people that maybe would have had an interest. But you kept it private and secret, and it's public property, it's public taxes, and they have a right to participate and have an opinion and know what's going on. And we're elected officials, and we're held to a higher standard. And it did break the rules of everything I've said. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. So I read through everything, and I don't know how you all want to proceed from here. Do we want to have an opinion or not have an opinion? How would you recommend that we continue?
Wish to say anything?
I mean, I have thoughts on it, but you know, again, I don't want to express my thoughts prior to, you know, something more official and completely neutral as the
Fair hearing.
Sorry.
That was,
Insisting on one
Senior
person.
moment, yeah.
Is this open? Nobody can talk.
it's not open, if, at the moment,
Okay.
but, excuse me, I'm trying to figure out how to continue because I don't know. The complainant got to have a say. We've reviewed, myself personally, I've reviewed all the information that was given in the packet. I had some questions on some of the rebuttals and the information in the complaint, but I don't want to. What's the end game? I mean, what are we trying to accomplish? What? And so I don't know. I don't know how to proceed with this. I've never done this before. I'm a landscaper. I'm not. So
Madam
I
Chair.
also recognize what Dave's opinion. I mean, and that's something to think about too. But what were you?
Well, opportunity for those who have been accused to have a say in this proceeding.
Yeah, please. One at a time. One at a time.
Karen Kane, Pines Lane. I'll just read my rebuttal and just some of Michelle's points that she made. I will address a few of those. On October 7th, the Select Board authorized Joe Wagner and I to go for grants without having to come back to us, meaning the Select Board each time. This is what we were in the process of doing. All activities and requested correspondence related to the Bunganut Trails were directly related to pursuing the feasibility of a grant. It wasn't to design trails, and I never understood the new grant policy to disallow what we had been approved to do. So if that was the case, that was not communicated, and certainly not my interpretation. The Maine Trails Program grant was identified as a possible way to get funds to establish or reestablish trails at Bunganut and perhaps tie into Sid Emery trails. Joe, Holly, Missy from Sid Emery, and I met with Adam Fisher from Maine Trails Program, and the purpose of that meeting was to understand the parameters of the grant and to determine how feasible it would be to pursue. In preparation for this meeting, I asked Holly to bring a map that was developed when we were on the Bunganut Committee so that we could orient Adam to the property. It was not a technical drawing that was developed as part of what we were doing. In order to make a recommendation to the town to go after a grant requires legwork to determine if it's worthwhile. This is the very same process we followed for the 3 other grants that Joe and I submitted on behalf of the town. This particular grant was much larger, much more complex with respect to the terms and requirements, so there was a lot more to explore. And when we talk about phases, we were talking about phases of breaking down the grant so that we could explore it, not phases of a trail program, as was suggested. On September 19th, it's my understanding the town manager and facilities director were made aware that we were meeting for the grant. In fact, the facilities director was invited to join us. At that time, either or both of them could have advised that they had a concern with what we were doing, and neither of them expressed any concerns. My understanding of when a public meeting and public notification is required is when 3 or more members of the same committee or board meet. So I called the state ombudsman to clarify this, and she indicated to me that the statute is very vague and is often interpreted in different ways. So until this is defined and included in our town charter, it's left to interpretation, and no violation can be considered at this time, in my opinion. Even the lawyer's interpretation is a lot of shoulds, and the town should. There's nothing concrete. So this is something that I requested clarification on in the past, and I know Joe has as well. So whenever we met, it was to gather information related to understanding the grant and the grant requirements. These were not decision-making meetings. No committee was formed. Planning to form a committee is not the same as having a committee. There was never a committee formed. In fact, we didn't get very far along in this process at all. Grant and facilities plans were not developed. There was no usurpation of town manager or department authority. There were no trail design choices made. There was no planning project phases determined. There was no preparation of creation of technical materials, and there was no delegation of tasks or definition of roles. There were a few questions that came up during the course of our discussions that would have been helpful to have answered by the select board. According to the Bunganut Committee project statement, upon disestablishment, responsibility will carry over to the Parks and Rec Committee. Therefore, this was the appropriate channel to pursue answers. Again, these were not plans, designs, or decisions. One question was related to when the gates would be open, so we'd know if the scope of the grant would include year-round or seasonal park use. The other 2 questions related to budget, because this grant requires the payment of project costs as they're incurred prior to reimbursement. Understanding if existing funds were available would have been helpful, but there were other ways to obtain upfront money as well, and those were also being explored. I want to share a very similar project. In January of this year, a group of us worked to pull together a DEP grant for waste diversion project. Leading up to the grant submission, we needed to do the same thing. We needed to figure out if it was going to be feasible. On January 23rd, Amber scheduled an informal meeting held at the town hall to discuss the project. This included Amber, myself, Randy from the transfer station, Jonathan Tibbetts, and I believe the town manager was present as well. On January 28th, Amber asked me to meet her at the library so we could work on an implementation plan and suggested if Joe was available that he could come too. The 3 of us met that day. So I asked, how is this any different? If it is determined that there were violations of charter and statute and there's grounds for forfeiture under this complaint, then the same would apply to Amber for her actions described herein. I, however, do not believe that there are violations in either case. The town had 4 highly motivated individuals seeking to find a way to fund a project that was requested by town residents in a town survey. We were willing to donate our time and energy to delve into the requirements of a very complex grant application. Given the negativity and mean-spiritedness that seems to have taken hold here, all that's been accomplished is turning people away from wanting to work with the town. This is all very sad for the town and for the people of Lyman. Lastly, to give the complainant the benefit of the doubt, I can understand that if one was not aware or forgot that Joe and I were given select board approval to go for grants on behalf of the town, they might think that what we were doing was wrong. If one was not aware that the town manager and the director of facilities was informed of what we were doing, I can see how they might think we were doing something wrong. If one was under the impression that a meeting of 3 town officials, not necessarily of the same committee or board, required a public meeting and notification, I can see why they may think we were doing something wrong. And if one wasn't present for all of the conversations and is only teasing bits and pieces out of emails, I can understand why they wouldn't have the full story. However, now that the facts have been disclosed in the packet, it should be clear to all that the allegations made by Michelle Felicetti are unfounded, and as such, I move to have this complaint dismissed in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Joe.
All right. Well, first off, I finally did get the town council to weigh in on this. And he said the following: the general rule is that when a quorum of a public body meets and discusses public business, that must be noticed as a public meeting. What you described below does not sound like a quorum of public bodies. However, I would recommend that town officials avoid anything that would appear to violate public meeting law or anything that looks like a committee. This scenario described below could be perceived as a committee since it involved a number of public officials and not private citizens. If they meet for the stated purposes of discussing town business, which we did not, it starts to sound more and more like a committee. As Michelle read the excerpt from MMA that Brad Morin, Town Council, refers to, I emphasize the following: an unintended meeting occurs when a quorum of municipal officials discusses town business. 2 members of a 5-member select board does not constitute a quorum. 1 member of a 6-member budget committee does not constitute a quorum. 1 member of a 4-member Parks and Rec committee does not constitute a quorum. With respect to the conversation that I had, I thought privately with Dave at the end of one of our select board meetings, the $25,000 that I was asking about, which has been approved by a town meeting for Bunganut, I was asking if that was reserved for the beach reclamation idea, part of the phases that the overall plan had in mind. Discussion of a movement of a house completely separate from that. There is a project going on over on the Route 111, a new sort of like office building park is being built there. There is a house there at present, and I was just wondering if Dave knew if what the intent was, whether to donate the house, move the house in some fashion. Dave, you mentioned maybe moving it over to Bunganut so that there'd be a residence for town employees or someone who would be a resident caretaker for Bunganut. So much is said about transparency. I'd be interested who the person was who contacted Amber about having a problem with what we were doing. That person, whoever you are, all you had to do is ask one of us. The character, reputation, and integrity of 4 good people has been put on trial. And to what ends? I ask all those who listen to this to consider our approach, our motivation, and our goals. What devious thing we were trying to do. Once again, find some money for the town for an improvement to a town property that I think has been accepted as an asset that we're trying to enhance so it would be more of a revenue generating property. I also ask that those listening to this consider the motivation, approach, and intent of the complainant. As the chair just mentioned, why? What is the end game here? I am.
Okay, just a couple things you brought up. Michelle, since you brought up the FOA, sorry, Amber, but you put in the FOA, she mentioned it. Michelle said she didn't give anything, but since you sent me the FOA, I'm going to quote it. It says, "I would like all emails and materials gathered for the FOA submitted to Amber." So I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Just putting the facts out there, and that was a quote. You sent an email admonishing us all and calling us all gross and morally corrupt, that we did not want to have us in executive session. And I really don't understand that, but let me keep going. I don't understand the severity of the allegations in the complaint or the characterization of routine civic engagement as serious misconduct. The accusations appear disproportionate to the actual events rather than based on legitimate governance concerns. And requested this matter be discussed in public session rather than executive session, and all agreed, because I believe the transparency that the complaint ironically claims that I tried to undermine, that's what we wanted. We wanted the folks to understand without the video of what was happening with your board members. I've served on the board for a short time, but I've done so, I believe, with integrity and with the town's best interest as my priority. My work includes, as you know, the town newsletter, meetings with the treasurer to better understand budget and expense reporting so I can more informatively vote on warrant articles, and bringing forward ideas such as food drive and community seminars. Maybe you see this as personally beneficial to me. I wouldn't understand that. I think I'm trying to better the community, which I also think grant research is. This is all done on my personal time. In small communities like Lyman, residents, including elected officials and committee members, because we are residents, often contribute their personal time to committee improvement efforts. This type of civic engagement reflects a commitment to community and should be encouraged, not discouraged. I believe the gatherings in question fall within the same category of individuals investing their time to explore ways to improve our town. I continue to believe that residents working together to explore ways to improve our community is not only appropriate, but essential. The gatherings in question, I don't believe they violated the law, no character provision, and no code of conduct. They were what they appeared to be, looking for grants. And I'm just going to read one paragraph from the grant policy and then I'm done. So this is a grant policy that came out February of this year. Before submitting a grant application, committees or volunteers must present a proposal to the town manager dealing with the scope and purpose of the grant, the anticipated outcomes, and the parties responsible for overseeing the project. The proposal must include cost estimates, any financial commitments required from the town, including maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you do the research to prepare to the town manager without doing the research? So I'm confused. That's my input.
That's it.
There's probably more and I forgot. I'm just a little thrown off, so, yeah.
I understand. Okay. I think that should conclude this for the moment, because it really doesn't matter what other people's opinions are. I think we all have the same information. I mean, this has happened all between you guys. What I would have to, I have some questions about it and all, but I kind of would prefer to not, because like Joe said, like I asked the question, I mean, what is the end game? What are we doing? Or, I mean, I don't know where we go from here, but if we are sending it and have sent it to the fair hearing officer, I don't know what else to say at the moment. Like, there's nothing to say. That's gonna help the situation. It's uncomfortable at best. I can only imagine what it feels like for you and for you, for everyone involved. Like, this is not how I ever envisioned our town to be. And so if we're having an impasse or a situation, we're trying to deal with it by communication here and now. But where do we go?
Well, I think I should do some housekeeping in regards to my motion. I think I should rescind my motion, since we have a new policy procedure in place, which It doesn't really mean anything nefarious there, just to take that separate equation and just follow the policy and procedure. And
Was that your motion, that the blanket
Yeah, because
motion? No.
Joe was coming every other meeting and filling us in, and we just said run with it. But since we put in a new policy and procedure, that should trump my motion. So let's just follow the policy and procedure.
Okay. Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on that?
If I may, when the policy went into place, it was still being followed. The town manager was informed of the general idea of exploring grant proposals, for grant possibilities for a trail at Bunganut. So there's no violation of the policy that was in place.
That's totally not what I'm stating.
I'm
I'm
just-
only trying to clear the water a little bit.
I'm trying to keep the water clear as well.
Yeah.
So there's no us disregarding the grant policy. It was followed.
Is there
Can
any
I-
more?
Do you mind, like, since I
Discussion?
keep getting brought up into this?
Yep.
As far as, I guess, was I notified of all the grants? Like, yes and no. Some stuff like the picnic tables, we sat down and talked about. And as far as the feasibility, it was on the Parks and Recs committee was supposed to assemble them. And so when I'm looking for feasibility, I'm looking for how are we going to allocate our resources effectively, meaning our staff and time resources as well. So if we're applying for grants, it's not just kind of landing on my desk like, hey, now you go deal with it. When I'm already juggling all these things over here on this side. So there was, I guess I'm hearing a lot of like the town manager was informed, but I don't feel like I got all the information all the time. Like the Bunganut ramps was difficult to work with. Once Michelle left the Bunganut committee, it was like all communication fell off. Like the Bunganut committee just wasn't really communicating really well. And I was trying to keep track of everything with the grants and trying to figure out where everything's going to go and doing RFPs and bids. So I believe that one I did bring to the board. I was like, you guys got to figure this out because I'm just tired of having to answer questions. I don't even know what's going on with it. And I wasn't really notified of the trail stuff. No, the funny thing to me is I looked through this packet and there was a bunch of questions of like, when is the gate open and what about this and what is this money allocated for? I could have answered that in like 2 seconds. If anyone had just taken the time to either call my office or set up a meeting with me, and not a single person asked me there's a bunch of questions in here. Nobody asked me. And, instead of having like meetings and gatherings, you could just came to me. And as far as like what Amber did it perfectly with the food waste conversion thing. Is she came to me with an idea of, this is what I want to run with. And we bounced it back and forth. And initially she thought this is a program we're going to do at the transfer station. And my concern was, well, I don't want to burden the staff. There's, they're part-time workers. They're kind of, running in between different residents and stuff. And I gave that concern to Amber. I said, if you can figure out a different method, let's come back to the drawing table. And she did. She went back to the drawing board, figured out a volunteer program, and we talked that through, Amber and I, before she initiated any other meetings with anybody else. So I had a full understanding of exactly what she was looking for, where she was looking to go with that, and how it was going to be feasible for the town. I think grants are great, but there's a lot of work into it, and there's a lot of future thought into it as well. If you develop a trail, who's going to maintain that trail? What's it going to cost to maintain it? Or if you do a food waste program, who's going to manage that? Who's going to make sure people aren't putting plastic bags in the bins? And who's going to remove it and keep track of everything? So that's the feasibility I'm looking for. And it usually just starts with, let's talk about your idea, and then people roll with it. I guess that's my take on it. And I think my takeaway from it as well is like, I don't think there's like an end game. It's Somebody brought a concern to the table. Now we're aware there's some confusion with policies and SOPs and standards of procedure. So we can clarify those things and move forward.
Okay.
You know,
I guess that's probably on my part. I apologize. That's probably a wrong terminology to
Okay.
use. I'm pretty good at that, using the wrong phrase in that, because that was going to be, my questions were based that I would have had on this whole thing was to ask you, because the only thing I feel like is the most egregious thing that I can see is that you were circumvented in ways, but some say they notified you, and so my questions would have had to do with how was she notified? How did that communication go? Was there any? Some
Right.
say there was some, and I don't.
I was notified by Parks and Rec's email saying there's a meeting on Friday at 1. And they didn't give me a date, so it was a Tuesday, and I'm thinking that's 3 days from now. Like, I already have obligations already, set. And my response to them was, here's the grant policy. We run into a lot of complications where, who's responsible for what and how all the pieces are going to fall into place. So review the policy, and then just come to me when you're ready to present whatever. It was vague on both parts, I think. I wouldn't say I was notified because I didn't have all the details. I didn't know who was involved. I didn't know what the plans were. I didn't know there was discussion about the $25,000. And, we had already talked about it at town meeting. Dave had talked about it in workshops of, we were trying to allocate that towards the beach project and get that worked out. Again, a lot of those questions in the packet, like I could have answered that or just easily sat down with someone and said, if you gave me your idea, I might kick back and say, here's where my concerns are, right? It's going to burden staff, or we don't have the equipment to maintain it 10 years from now, whatever that concern is going to be. But that's a back and forth discussion. How do we work this out and figure out the idea as a whole? And then typically, like in Amber's case, she started running with it. Once we figured out the logistics, I was like, here. And I knew she was contacting Randy, and I knew she was contacting Karen and Joe, and like everything she was involved with, she copied me on everything. So if any citizen asks me questions, I know exactly, I can answer them. I can help them find the information. That's part of my job, is to answer citizen inquiries. So it's really helpful if I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for clarification, you guys are like way further than we ever were with this, way further. We didn't tell you more because we weren't at that point. These were just ideas that were floating around. We certainly, if we had got to a point where we said, okay, we think this is feasible, would have come to you like Amber did for the food waste diversion. And having worked on the food waste diversion grant, I can tell you that not all of the logistics were in place before we started writing that grant. I was writing org charts. I was developing processes and running them by you all. So I think there's a little misstatement there on your part. I also remember, Lindsay, you and I having a conversation, you expressing a concern to me with some of the other grants that they weren't all thought through well, that there were a lot of loose ends and it created a lot of confusion. So that was one of my goals in trying to get my arms around this grant up front, was to get some ducks in a row so that we could say, okay, we can now come to the town, we can come to you, we can come to the select board and say, there's this great grant out there that is going to, potentially a very competitive grant, so potentially help us fund a project that the town told us they're looking for. That's all it is. There's no hidden agenda here. There's no trying to go around people's back. Holly was involved because she knows those trails better than anybody, and she had already reached out to the RTP, which is now the MTP. Joe was helping me, great mentor on the grants. We got 3 out of 3. I never thought we'd be so good at it. And
You guys have
it
been
came in
good
a
at it.
little bit later. So I don't know, I think this is all silly and a waste of everybody's time. We have more important things to be doing. That's all I'm gonna say.
You? Please?
Oh,
No, a citizen had
I
a
said,
problem.
oh, not
A
uh-oh.
citizen had a problem. It's a whistleblower too, so who it is doesn't matter. Smirk all you want. I saw the smirky get
Okay,
Karen.
can we
No,
stop?
no, no, no.
Stop with the attacks.
No,
Let's
no,
keep it.
He smirked at Karen.
I don't care.
when Lindsay talked about how Michelle made sure communication was happening. I did. That's the whole point, communication, the town being aware. Davis Road was discussed in those emails. That's town property. That's not Bunyana. Those are mentioned in the emails. Those are in there. Moving the gate was mentioned in the emails. These are still things that should have been publicly talked about. They should have. People have a right to know what you're talking about. You talked about Davis Road is in great shape already. That's town property. That was talked about. So not just grants were talked about in those emails. It's 812 pages. It's a lot to read, but it wasn't just that. The person I don't know how they knew. I don't know anything. Again, I've read the emails and it does have the impetus of impropriety. Close your eyes for a second and picture this for a second. That is Dave Alves, Michelle Felicetti, and Amber Sweat at Michelle's house doing the same emails. We would be pitchforked to death. It's the same thing. It's like the end game is, it's really difficult to think that you're going to be voting on the budget for anything to do with trails or Bunyana now, knowing that you were doing research. And would you want to push money that way more than another way now? You can roll your eyes. That's what people may think, because you have done that. You've put yourself in a place that shows impropriety. It shows partialization towards something instead of making it something the public can be a part of. Community is important to me. Community should be important to everybody, for everyone to be a part of community. And this wasn't all a community.
Thank you.
So what I was going to say is then we need to rewrite the grant policy to say that we need to ask your permission before we can even start, because that's what I'm getting from this.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting to. And it's not like, okay, it's not like a crime happened, it's just that I don't expect anyone to know the logistics. Amber didn't know all the logistics. She was like, I have an idea. And we just started working out that until I was like, all right, if you want, now we know where we're going. The way I look at it, I guess maybe from like a management perspective, is like you're allocating resources. So if, we just hired a facilities person who is helping us with trails, but they're helping us with maintenance and our facilities and grounds. So if I had known maybe a group of people over here is carving out these trails or looking to make some adaptations, well, then I'm not going to allocate the staffing resource to do that. I could say, all right, this group of volunteers is going to work on this. Now I can allocate your staffing resource that you're paying a lot of money to work, and I can put them over here and have them assigned to a different project. So it's not necessarily knowing like all the exact details at the very beginning, but it's understanding like where we all are on the same page. That way, if I know, okay, Amber's working on this project, I can allocate so-and-so to do this project. It's just working together and being collaborative. But yeah, I agree. Like just
Just reading this, I'd be like, oh, if there's opportunities out there to maybe do something helpful for the town, you got to do that, put the presentation together, bring it to the town manager, and she'll decide if it goes forward, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And I'm lax when it comes to policies. I worked in companies that had really strict policies, and like those are hard companies to work for. So, we usually start a policy with a baseline, and then if we have to tighten up the language and make it stronger, we can do that. We can always amend it, and maybe we clarify those things and just say, okay, step 1 is this, step 2 is that, step 3 is X.
Take it and learn and move on.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like to write things that are like, you shall, must, but if we got to do that, then we got to do that.
So there is a motion in a second, and I'd like to modify in regards to the new policy and procedure that's in place that would take the place of the motion I made to also include to modify the policy and procedure as necessary.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you just said. Say it again, please.
You seconded it, right?
Yeah, but he just modified it, and I don't
Okay,
understand what you're saying.
Meaning that we can modify the policy and procedure
Yeah,
as necessary. So if we look at that and see that it's not fulfilling the full picture, we can modify
Yeah.
the
okay.
procedure.
So you're saying to
And policy.
modify this so it's clearer?
Yes.
Is that, did you
That makes sense.
be
I
in
didn't
favor of
understand.
that as your
It
second?
spun my head.
Because you
Yeah,
seconded
second.
the original? Okay. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Oh, wait, I would like to say something. I
Okay.
wasn't going to speak, but I feel like it will lend a little bit of why I started this and why I was not able to finish it. Somebody came to me, a citizen, who had a complaint. They came to me while I was working and asked me if I would look into this. And I said, yes. So I forwarded it and I got the emails. And one of the very first things that I noticed was Lindsay was not CC'd on hardly any of these emails. And then one, when I was reading, it reads, "It sounds like we all want to keep this effort moving with an informal committee and focus on Bunganut Trails in phase 1. If anyone thinks that this approach will not be favored by the town, it would be better to know now versus later. I certainly don't want to overstep or step on anyone's toes." So that said to me that this person already had a thought that I may be stepping on somebody's toes. Sorry. And then the next thing was assuming it's a go. And I was like, well, who are you asking permission? Because there's 2 select board members, a budget committee member, and a volunteer. And so then it goes on. And then we have, sorry, I knew I should have marked these. Then we have a select board member coming back and saying, I'd say continuing as an informal conversational group is the way to go for now. To me, that just felt like wordsmithing. It felt like, yes, I'm giving you permission, but we're just going to call it something else so we can keep going. That's why I started. When I started, that's what I focused on. I am sorry that my life took a nosedive. I had a child end up in the hospital. I had an aunt that was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I got overwhelmed and I just could not focus on this. My issue with this is that once again, the town manager was circumvented. That is my biggest complaint, because we voted as a town to go to town manager form of government, yet the town manager part of the government keeps getting circumvented. That's what I was asked to look into. That's what I forward for. And that is still my biggest problem with this. And that's all I have to say on it.
Thank you. We done with this subject?
Are you gonna have a conclusion?
Are we gonna have a conclusion? I don't think.
Well, I mean, there's been an allegation made, and I assume people have to say either yes, they're guilty, or no, they're not.
Yeah.
There's a motion on the floor. Motion and a second. What do you vote?
On your, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
And there's no one opposed because it's unanimous. Does anybody want to make the next motion?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for 1 MRSA
Oh, I guess we're done with this then?
6A, discussion regarding personnel matters.
Thank you.
Did I have a second?
Anyone want?
I can't hear.
While we get some vacancies on it.
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
You volunteer.
David, aye, we're going into executive
Aye.
session.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put my feet up and.
That was unanimous.
And I'm like, can we go to the Briarwood side? And then, yeah, then I go home and work on the news and University of Dayton shut my mail down. So while I'm listening to the news and looking at my email, and Lighthouse Credit Union's closed, I'm like, okay.